think one of the weirdest experiences I had was when I realized that I was actually going to be on Jeopardy, and I walked into the studio. And there were all the podiums and the little clickers and the categories, and I thought, this is really happening. It was the most interesting thing, but also it was terrifying, because at the same time I realized that this was my opportunity to completely mess up something and make a fool of myself in front of millions of people in prime time. I won 4 times, and in my 5th game I missed a question, and it turns out I was actually right. And so they invited me back to play one more game, and that's how I made my 5th game, so that I went to the Tournament of Champions. I went off to college thinking I was going to become a chemistry major, because I grew up in a working class family. My parents were both high school dropouts, and chemistry was a real job. But I also grew up next to an Air Force base, a strategic bomber base with nuclear weapons. So I was very conscious of the reality that my hometown could be vaporized in minutes. When I got to college, I decided that I had a better aptitude for studying Russian than I did for studying chemistry. This was the Cold War in the 80s, and we were all pretty scared, and I thought, well, if I want to be part of this, I should educate myself and learn the subject. And that's how I ended up becoming a Soviet expert. You had to speak Russian. It was a very strange place. People didn't know a lot about its geography or history or culture, and yet everybody seemed to have an opinion about it. And I remember thinking even 40 years ago that it was kind of weird that people have these really well-defined views about a country they've never been to. Years later, I was talking to a young person on the internet, and he said to me, Tom, I don't think you understand Russia. Let me explain Russia to you. And that's when I finally felt like something has really gone haywire in our public discourse at that moment. Part of what I do online is something I can't help, because it comes from years of being a teacher. And that when people say things that I can correct, I feel like I have to correct them, because that's what I did in classrooms for 35 years. Sometimes I think it's just fun to argue about, what the best flavor of ice cream is, or who the best James Bond was. When it comes to more important things, I think it's important that if you are a professor or a professional or an expert or a writer now, you have an obligation to engage with the public. A legitimate criticism of experts is that they only want to talk to each other, because they understand each other, they understand the discourse, they understand the terms of debate. But I actually think that talking to people in public, whether it's on social media or in speaking publicly, I think those are all things that people with expertise ought to do. If you're an expert, your client is society. On my birthday one year, someone on social media said, my birthday present to you is to admit to you that I sometimes change my mind based on things you've said. And I said, that is about the nicest birthday present you could give a professor or an expert or a public intellectual. So I hope I've changed some minds. Occasionally people have changed my mind.